so many are asking how this could have happened. Out front now is Miles O'Brien. And obviously, Miles, you have spent a career covering this industry, covering tragedies in this industry, and you are a pilot yourself. So this investigation is in its early stages. It's honed in, obviously, on the elevation and the altitude of the helicopter, but we don't know what we don't know right now. What are your leading theories from the information we do have?
Something was happening in that cockpit of that Black Hawk helicopter, which may have distracted the crew, perhaps as part of the training mission. Perhaps they were having difficulty with the night vision goggles. Who knows? The cockpit voice recorder, which I'm pretty certain will be recovered and the data will come out of it, should shed a lot of light of what was happening, what distractions might have occurred. It is hard to see moving air traffic at night in a city with all those background lights. But that is still the responsibility of that crew to see and avoid traffic. And obviously that did not happen here.
No, it didn't. And there was just no time. I mean, as we said, the slides weren't deployed. There was no, at that point, you're low enough to the ground, texting. I mean, there was nothing, just a silence, and clearly so sudden. President Trump has had blame for this in several quarters. He had referenced DEI initiatives. He also specifically referenced the FAA hiring people with severe disabilities. Let me just play for you exactly what he said, Miles.
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine?
So, Miles, he then went on to specify that one of the disabilities he was referring to is missing extremities. Now, this is something actually you know about. You can speak to personally. You're a licensed pilot. You lost an arm in an accident. So I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, number one, Aaron, let's not forget what it must be like to have lost a loved one and hear this whole, literally with your loved one still underwater. Here it turned into this weird political thing. But as personally, as someone who was a pilot, lost my arm, and went through the process of getting recertified to fly, I can attest to you that I went through every hoop and got over every bar an able-bodied individual would in order to be recertified to fly. The FAA simply does not forsake safety in order to include disabilities in the system. I am part of the aviation community because I persevered through that, and it's an affront to me and all other disabled people to allow that statement to come into play. So it's unfortunate in the context of a terrible tragedy relative to the tragedy these families face. I guess it's not as big a deal, but it is a gut punch to those of us who are disabled and aviators.
Yeah. And incredible that you're able to speak to that personally. Well, Miles, I appreciate talking to you and thank you very much.
Just a little over a week into his second term in office, President Trump was confronted with this national tragedy. It's a moment when our presidents often unite the nation and console those who are suffering. Here's what we heard from our president yesterday.
I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. We then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
After he made those remarks in the briefing room, President Trump was asked to clarify his comments, and he was asked if he was planning on visiting the site of the disaster.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because
What did you tell me? What's the site? The water?
Or to meet
Want
with the
me to go
first
swimming?
responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that.
Do you want me to go swimming? He asks. Upon hearing about President Trump's comments yesterday, I want to share with you what our CNN aviation correspondent, Pete Muntean, had to say about it. And here's why. Pete is a pilot himself. He is someone who loves flying despite knowing just how dangerous it can be. Both of his parents were pilots, and he actually lost his mother in a plane crash. Here's what he said on our air yesterday.
It is just so soon, way too soon, to make any sort of indictment or insinuation that air traffic control was to blame here, that hiring policies were to blame here, that the pilots of the Black Hawk were to blame here. This is something that investigators will have to go through, not only on the scene, and they are there now doing the Lord's work. This is only the precipice. And so for the families that are going through hell right now, and I know this because I've lost my late mother to a plane crash, this made it even more hellish. What was that? I just cannot, I'm sorry to get angry, but what is the point of making some sort of speculative, wide-ranging, rudderless claim about anything about hiring at the FAA?
All right, our panel is here to discuss. Michael Warren, senior editor at The Dispatch, Kendra Barkoff, former press secretary to Joe Biden, and Brad Todd, CNN political commentator and a Republican strategist. Welcome to all of you. Brad Todd, I want to start with you on the president because this is something we have seen from Trump. The word blame kept coming to my mind as I watched that press conference yesterday because much of why Trump has been so successful as a politician is because of the politics of blame. He blames people, he blames other people, he blames, that's just what he does in situations like this. He levels blame. Pete, I think, said it incredibly well. What is your perspective on how the president handled the moment yesterday and whether that was the right thing for our country?
Well, Donald Trump's good at a lot of things. One thing he's bad at is being a mourner. Yesterday was the day when the president needed to be a mourner and needed to lead the country in mourning, and he's really bad at that. I think before he went out, he should have gone and watched President Reagan's speech after the Challenger disaster, where Peggy Noonan had written for him a poem, which Reagan knew, about them slipping the surly bonds of earth. The poem's called High Flight. It was a moment for poetry yesterday. There are going to be plenty of time to argue about the FAA's policies and DEI and other mistakes it's made, but yesterday was definitely not that time. He's just more comfortable in combat and confrontation. I think he takes situations where mourning is in need and tries to shift it out of mourning into a battle that he's more comfortable with. It was the wrong key yesterday.
Kendra?
I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy with him, he had a real opportunity to go out there and to talk about these families who have lost loved ones. And the ability to not have any sort of compassion, to not even say that he was going to go and meet with the families who have lost their loved ones. It is sort of incomprehensible that this is where we are and this is our president. And
is it incomprehensible though? I mean, didn't we know going into this that this was what this was going to be like if President Trump was back in the White House?
Yes, but also this happened, across the river from where he lives currently in the White House, and it's just it is unbelievable that you can be so tone deaf and not realize, okay, the first thing I should say is something about these lost souls.
I think it's worth noting he did at the top of the press conference say that this was a national tragedy and that, he did try to express some semblance of that, but it was also very clear that he had prepared all of this other material and all of the ways in which he was going to blame various things. Michael Warren, it does seem to me, and you already invoked the great Peggy Noonan, who we often read from on this show, and she, I think she wrote this column actually possibly before the crash actually happened. It was published afterward, but it's really focused a little bit on what happened earlier in the week with the funding freeze and some of the other things we've seen from the Trump administration. But she wrote this: for all the talk of the new professionalism in the Trump administration, operation. They have to get used to the chaos again and ride it. She's talking about Republicans in Washington, tempting the gods of order and steadiness. After 1 week, they concluded the first administration wasn't a nervous breakdown and the second is a recovery. Again, they're on a ship with a captain in an extended manic phase who never settles into a soothing depression.
Yeah, I mean, Peggy Noonan's a great writer, and it was 39 years ago this week that the Challenger disaster happened, and that speech really, you saw a president rise to the occasion in that. I don't know, I agree with you, Casey, I don't know why we're surprised that Donald Trump, this is not a strength of his, to sort of rise to these moments. We saw this in his first term quite a few times. There's a weird phenomenon when you're watching Donald Trump respond to this where it almost seems like he's not the president in that moment. Like he's a commentator, maybe on a show like this, sort of, talking about those thoughts as they come to him. And it's just not the place that Americans, need their president to be right now.